Okay, this is the video for lesson 6, interpreting the standard deviation. Example 1, your teacher will show you how to use your calculator to find the mean and standard deviation for the following set of data. And then we have a set of 8 men having heights in inches as shown below. Before, we would do our calculations essentially manually by typing doing all the operations, on our own, which is multiple operations. And it's not really that hard finding the mean or even the standard deviation. But now we're going to use the calculator to do all of that all at once. It is still a little time consuming because we do have to type in all the data, but we only have to do that one time and then we get all our information. Here are the steps, but I'm going to walk you through them. But I'm leaving them here so you always have them and can come back and refer to them. So you might want to either take a screenshot. This is going to be saved for you so you can always access it. But here's my calculator. So the first thing I'm going to do is push stat. That's this button here, stat. And then I need to edit. So it's already selected on one edit. So I'm going to hit enter. And if there was data in here, because you might have already done this on a previous question, you would move up and then hit clear. But there's no data, so we're all set. We're going to type it in. So my first value is 67.0. Well, I'll go ahead and do that just for consistency. So next one, 70.9, enter. And I just keep going till I have them all in there. 67.6, enter. 69.8, enter. 69.7, enter. Notice after each one I'm hitting enter. 70.9, thank goodness there's only 8 of these. 60.7, enter, and 67.2, enter. Okay, so now I have all the data in there. So next thing I'm going to do is I need to get out of this screen, but I don't want to clear anything that's in there. So I'm going to hit second. And then if you see the button next to it, mode, above it says quit. If I hit that, it gets out. Now I want to go back to my stat menu. But this time I'm going to calculate. So I over 1. Now this is why I put those directions in there, because there's a lot of steps here. By the way, look at all this fun stuff we get to do at some point. Not yet, but soon. So we want the very first thing, one variable statistics. Enter. All the stuff that we're using list L1. If we were using one of the different lists, because you notice there was a bunch of other ones, we would we would need to change it. But since we're all set, I'm going to go ahead and calculate, and there you go. So this gives us the information. Actually, there's a lot of extra stuff in here. It tells us our n value. This first thing here, x with a line over it, that is the mean. Okay. Here is the sum of the x's, the sum of the x squareds. S and then x, this is the standard deviation right here, okay? And then this would be, I think, this is for a sample, this is for a population. All right, so I'm going to scroll down, and this other information here, this is for making a box plot, which will be coming soon. Minimum, quartile 1, median, quartile 3, and maximum. But for now, all we need is our mean, which is this first one, x with a line over it, and our standard deviation, which is this. So I'm going to come back over to here, type in my mean, which is, I'm going to the nearest hundredth, so it was 68.98, and then the standard deviation, and that is 1.59. All right, so I want you to try to do this next one on your own. I'm going to pause the recording, and when we come back, I'll show you what I have in my calculator. You compare, and then we'll go from there. Actually, I changed my mind. I do want to show you one thing. To get back to the main screen, I'm going to do second, quit again. I'm going to go stat, and then it's already selected the first thing, which is edit. So I'm going to hit enter. Now I have data in there. Before I can do that second set of data, I need to clear it out. So I'm going to bump it up to where it's highlighted the L1, and notice it has all these values in there. Hit clear, enter, and ta-da. So now you're all set to try typing it in on your own and then running the stat. I'll pause the recording now, and when we come back, we'll take a look at what we have next. Okay, and we're back. All right, so I want to show you another hint here. So I know when I read the question, it says the height. Actually, I'll go back to it. The heights in inches of 9 women are shown below. Oh, by the way, shame on you, Mr. Decker. I did not put my label. We need to have inches. I can abbreviate, that's fine. All right, much better. Of 9 women are shown below. So we have these 9 values. Use the calculator to find the standard deviation and the mean of the heights of those to the nearest hundredth. So we need to round. Okay. All right. So I want you to notice something. I typed in my values. If I go up, it tells me the number of the value that I'm on. In other words, if you look down here in this screen, L1 and then in parentheses 5. That's the 5th number, 6th number, 7th, 8th, 9th. So I have 9 values. I ended up on 10 because I hit enter after the last one. But in other words, I know I have all of my 9 in here. So that's kind of a quick check. Sometimes you might have a problem that has a lot of values to type in. Let's say there's 15 of them or 20 of them. Okay. You're going to be going way down. In order, an easy way, instead of having to count all of them, just look in the parentheses here and make sure on the last one you have the number of values that you're supposed to have. So in this case, it's 9. All right, so I'm going to hit second, quit. Then I'm going to go to stat. I'm going to go over 1 to calc. It's already highlighted on number 1. By the way, you can either hit enter or hit 1 here. You hit the number next to the one that you want. We're going to be doing linear regression later on. That'll be fun. The list 1 is the one that we want. So enter, enter. Now, notice the whole thing, calculate, is highlighted. So when I hit enter, ta-da. So my answer should be 68.28. And then I got to round that 8, either up or leave it alone. I'm going to round it up because the next value is an 8. So 68.28. Or excuse me, 0.29. And then the standard deviation. This is the standard deviation. Actually, I'll make a note of that on our over here. Okay, so so X with a line over it is the mean. And then this is the standard deviation. And I'll just abbreviate deviation. So our mean is 68.28 repeating. So we round that to a 9 inches. Yes, the labels are important. Don't lose points on labels. And then the standard deviation rounded to the nearest hundredth is 1.58 inches. Okay. I'm going to pause the recording. I'll meet you over on page 37. All right, question 2. A group of people attended a talk at a conference. At the end of the talk, 10 of the attendees were given a questionnaire that consisted of 4 questions. The questions were optional. So it was possible that some attendees might answer none of the questions, while others might answer 1, 2, 3, or all 4. So the possible numbers of questions answered were 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Suppose that the number of questions answered by each of the 10 people were shown below. So we have a nice symmetric dot plot here. Use the statistical feature in your calculator to find the mean and standard deviation of the data set. All right, so do that on your own. I'm going to pause the recording. When we come back, we'll take a look at the results. All right, I'm going to move quickly. You can see I've got my values typed in. When I go one past the last one, I'm at the 11th element or field. That one's empty, so I know I have 10 above it. All right, so I'm going to hit second quit, go to stat, over 1 to calc, enter, 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 da, 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 da. My mean is 2. My standard deviation is 1 and all of this, but I only need to the nearest hundredth, so that's the 5. There's a 4 next to it, so I don't round it up, so it's 1.15. So I come back, and here we go. I had already filled this in. 1.15 questions. If you are wondering where I got those numbers from, I did not actually tell you how to do that. You got to look at the dots. So there's 1 above 0, 2 above 1, 3 above 2, and so on. So that's where the numbers came from. If we look at question 3, we're going to do the same thing with these numbers, okay? And we're going to use the calculator to find the standard deviation and mean again. So on your own, do that. I'm going to pause the recording. We'll come back. We'll look at the answers. All right, and we're back. So here's what I got for a mean. I actually have the same mean as what was up here, 2. But the standard deviation is different. This is 1.49. Let's get the decimal out of there. And same with the one from up above. This would be 115. This would be 149. Those two numbers are very different, okay? So I want you to keep that in mind. And here's why. So when we look and answer this question from B, and try to understand why there is a difference in the standard deviation. The points in exercise 3 are generally farther from the mean than the points in exercise 2. So the standard deviation is larger. Notice the shape of the dot plots. So number 2, the dot plot is symmetric, right? Now 3, it is not skew, but it is not, and I guess it is symmetric, but if you think about it, there are more points all the way to 0 and more points all the way to 4. And that's why there's a greater standard deviation, greater variability in number 3 than in number 2. That's what this is all about. All right, I'm going to pause the recording and I'll meet you over on the last page, page 30. Okay, number 4, suppose that all 10 people questioned answered all 4 questions in the questionnaire. What would the dot plot look like? Well, that's pretty simple. They would all be above the 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oops, I need 2 more. Sorry about that. Watch this trick. I found that if I make it a heavier dot, 9, 10, it's easier to just click and answer. What is the mean of the number of questions? You should be able to calculate this without using the calculator. Well, that's easy. The mean is going to be 4. 4 questions. I'll just do QU. What is the standard deviation? How much different are all the dots compared to the mean? Well, that's actually easy also. It is 0. So there's 0 variability here, okay? And that's what we're trying to look at and talk about. Question 5. Continue to think about the situation previously described. Draw a dot plot of the distributions of possible values that have largest possible standard deviation. That would actually be pretty simple. The largest possible standard deviation would be if half of them were over here and the other half were over here. In other words, how spread out is our data? Explain why the distribution you've drawn as a deviation larger standard than in 4, because the data is more spread out. That's our explanation. That's what this is all about. All right, so hopefully now you understand a little bit more about standard deviation. If you have any questions, be sure to ask them in class, which is where I'll see you. Goodbye.